Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore and I'm joined here by my lovely co-host, Maria Casillas. And today we are going to be talking about something that I am super excited about. Just because I think that this is something that is kind of an untapped thing for a lot of coaches. And it's something that could be very beneficial to not just you as the coach, but also to your clients as well.
Right.
But before we get into any of that, there's one thing I want to say to the listeners, and then one thing I just want to kind of pick on Maria a little bit on as well. So to the listeners, I'll say, if this is your first time listening, maybe you're a new coach or you're a seasoned coach that's just looking for new resources in the new year, welcome. We're happy to have you. And if you enjoy listening to this episode today, feel free to leave a review, to share the show, to leave a rating. All those things help because we don't get paid for this. We don't take any ads, anything like that. So all those little gestures really do go a long way. And if you are someone who's been listening for many, many weeks, many, many months, many, many years, we just want to say, hey, welcome back. Good to see you again. And you are someone that we would call our every weeker. And we just want to say thank you to you for supporting this show week in and week out. We really do appreciate you for being here. And then lastly, if you haven't yet and you'd like to connect with us as well as any listeners on the show, a great place to do that would be in our Facebook group, which is simply called the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits on Facebook. So feel free to join into there, make a post, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you got going on and what your goals are for 2026. And we'll be there to connect with you, cheer you on, hold you accountable, all that good stuff. So with all that being said, Maria, before we were hopping on and, recording this episode, you were telling me all about how you got a new phone and how it's super, super big and you don't like it and all these kind of things. So why don't you like your new phone? I mean, what's going on? Is it just the size or what?
Yes. Yes, I have been hanging on to my old one, if for no other reason, just because it was nice and small. And then it finally petered out on me and I had to get something different. And I was very frustrated by that whole process. But I was trying not to complain too much. I was just explaining to you why I didn't want to switch over. But I do, since you brought it up, Cody, I will share with you an experience that I had with obtaining that new phone and how it kind of happened. I'll give you the quick version of it because I honestly think that this is a lesson that we can have our listeners use in their business. So I've been with the same carrier for over 20 years. And I joked with Cody and said I've been with them since he was in diapers, but I know he's not that much younger than I am. But I have been a loyal customer. I've been paying this company every month for 20 years. And I was explaining to Cody and to the representative that I was speaking to that it is very frustrating for loyal customers to see all of these different commercials that say, come on over to us and we'll give you X, Y, and Z. And it's I know there are strings attached to those things. I totally get that. But it oftentimes feels like the people who have been loyal aren't getting some of those little perks and benefits. And for the first time in a long time, I don't know if people are leaving this particular network for that reason or for others. But I don't want to say I threatened to leave, but I did let them know that we've kind of thought about maybe switching over somewhere. It's not something we want to do, but if we can't get the coverage that we want, then, we might have to do that. And whatever I said worked because I was telling Cody earlier that we walked out of this deal with 4 brand new phones and 4 cases for the phones and an extender in my home that was also being completely given to us and waived. And it was crazy how different of an experience that has been. Oh, plus they're giving us $20 off of our bill for every month for the next 3 years. And so I'm I don't even know how that all happened, but I'm grateful that it did. And it I was so grateful that I actually said to the representatives, there were 2 of them, I told them how grateful I was that they're finally recognizing the people who are loyal to them. That those of us who have been doing this for a long time, we appreciate that pat on the back once in a while. And it just got me thinking, Cody, that it really is easier, and maybe they're figuring this out, to keep a client than to obtain another one. And the same concept goes when you've got an employee. It's less expensive to keep and train a good employee than it is to go through the hassle of finding somebody else. And so it just kind of got me thinking about just the whole client acquisition process and how tedious that can be, how time consuming, how expensive that can be, especially with time, if nothing else. And yet we've got a pool of clients that we're already serving. How can we make their experience so wonderful and give them some benefits that are so strong that they want to stay with us? And I think that that's kind of where we're planning to go with today's conversation. So thanks for letting me, I guess, complain a little bit to bring us to this point.
Yes, yes. And as you were talking about, how it's more expensive to bring on new clients or more expensive to bring on new employees as compared to
Yeah.
keeping them. That reminded me of an episode of The Office.
Oh, shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a really, really famous episode of The Office, and it's called The Fire, which is the episode where Ryan started the fire in The
Okay.
Office, which, this song is Ryan started the fire, right? Um, and when they're all in the parking lot, Ryan is in business school, and Michael is like, trying to be all cool and impress Ryan and being like, well, I know more about business and everything like that. So Ryan starts, quizzing Michael. And one of the questions, the only question that he asks Michael is it more expensive to keep an employee or to bring on or I'm sorry, is it more expensive to get a new customer or to keep an existing customer?
Mm,
And Michael says that it's more expensive to keep an existing customer, of course. And Ryan corrects him. He says, actually, it is 12 times more expensive
mm.
to bring on a new customer than to keep an existing one. So there's your fun fact. And it all
That's
ties back
great.
to The Office, right?
Yes, and I'm not an Office enthusiast the way that you are, so I have not seen that
Hmm.
episode. I'm grateful that you actually shared it because that little fun fact, I didn't even know it, but it makes sense that
Hmm.
it's 12 times more expensive.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
So that is kind of the direction that we wanted to take with this episode is talking about scaling your practice. And I think that we can actually split this up into two different ways, two different episodes. But the
Okay.
one that we really want to focus on today is scaling your practice through the clients that you already have, right?
Mhm.
Um, and basically, what that would look like is, obviously you would bring on some new clients, whether they be one-on-one client, whether they be a group client. And then, if you have the type of program to where you're like, hey, like we work together for 6 months, let's just say, right? Well, that after that 6 months, they can either go off on their own, to which they need to bring on new clients, or they can continue with you. And there's been a structure that I've implemented over the last 2 years that has been actually really, really fruitful for not just me and my practice, but for the clients as well. Almost like a alumni kind of program that I've been able to mm, not funnel these people into, but encourage them
Transition
into,
them.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
You know, so if it's okay with you, Maria, I'd like to just kind of explain what that alumni program is, what I call it, how it's structured, what it looks like, and of course the benefits of it for both the coach and the client.
Yeah, can we go in the reverse order, Cody? Can we start with the benefits first?
Hmm.
That be
Hmm.
okay? Yeah.
Yep.
Because I'd love to hear that because this is partly why, I mean, when we're talking about quote unquote loyal customers, as I with that carrier, um, I got something out of it. It was a win-win because they kept me, but I also got something out of it. So I'd love to start with the benefits if we could.
Yeah. Yep. So uh, I need a little bit of context in order to set up that benefits. So I'll just tell you that I have a alumni program, and it's in the form of a group program. So whether these people were group clients, group coaching clients of mine before, or whether they were one-on-one clients of mine before, this is something that, like, if they wanted to continue, they could go into a group setting. And I call
Perfect.
this group, and this is my name, so don't
Mhm.
steal it, but you can use it for some inspiration. I
Mhm.
call this group the Money Momentum Group. And with all that being said, the benefits to that on the coach's end would be that maybe you had, you know, let's say like 6 one-on-one clients that you were going through the same program, having kind of very similar meetings, similar, curriculum, and
Mhm.
you were extending your time because maybe your meetings are an hour for each person. Well, having one meeting of teaching them how to budget would take 6 hours for those
Mhm.
6 clients, kind of thing. Six
Mhm.
hours of your time, right? So then you take that and you condense it into one meeting with all 6 of those people. Well, now all of a sudden it's 1 hour and all 6 of those people are still getting the same benefit, right? So
Mhm.
the benefit to the coach is that, hey, you're putting less time into your coaching while also still giving benefit to the client of giving them, the lessons or the support that they need, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that would be one benefit to both the client and also to the coach. Another benefit is just creating that sense of community, right? So there's a lot of power of, especially with finances, because it's kind of a taboo subject for a lot of people. But I think that there's a lot of power in putting like-minded individuals who are all working on similar goals or who have been at that point in their journey at one time, putting them in the community to where they can lean on each other, they can support each other, they can bring new perspectives and new thought patterns to each other. They can hold each other accountable, all the things that we do as coaches, but it's not
Mhm.
just us anymore. It's
Mhm.
the whole group doing that for your clients.
It's
And
their peers.
also, another benefit too is that also empowers your clients to not just invest into themselves or into their selves to improve their own situation, but it also sets them up to have the opportunity to invest into other people,
Mhm.
which, interestingly enough, one thing that I've noticed is that the people who invest into other people actually tend to invest into themselves and get more out of it for themselves as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's the benefit of that as well. And with my group in particular, there's kind of a mixed bag of, clients who are in different places. So I really love helping people accomplish two main goals. One would be getting out of debt, right? Getting out of
Mhm.
debt and building your savings, which I think is a pretty normal one for a lot of financial coaches. So of course, there's people in that group who are in that place and they're working through becoming debt free. They're working through building up their savings for, whether it be their sleep well at night fund, whether it be their first home, whether it be starting a business, whatever it might be. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of people like that. But then there's also people I've been working with for quite some time who started there. They worked their way out and now they're in a place to where they're ready to start, doing some form of investing. In particular, I really love helping people with real estate investing because that's also what I do as well. So having that mix of people in that group really does create a really cool community because for all those people who are in it, there's a mix of people who can relate with each other,
Mhm.
be inspired by each other, or even motivate each other. And
Mhm.
that community is a really, really strong benefit that you can just kind of facilitate as a coach as well.
Yeah.
Um, so that's some of the benefits. Obviously, there's more, but that's probably
Yeah.
some of the like more,
Obvious
in the
one.
front of mind
Yeah.
benefits.
I appreciate that. So, the people who are going through the Money Momentum group, those
Mhm.
are clients who you've already worked with, whether individually or in a group. And so, chances are they're a little bit further along in their journey
Correct.
than some of the others. Okay.
Yep.
So, one of the other benefits I just want to point out to our listeners is the idea and how to like present this to our clients, how to almost set them up for an expectation that this is a really good thing for them to do once they're done with the first part is to use those stages of change that we've talked about so often on this show,
Hmm.
and to just let them know that, everybody goes through these stages, and the last couple stages include maintenance and relapse. And that a lot of times, if we don't have that maintenance, then we will absolutely relapse, especially if we don't have any accountability and all those things that you've already talked about. And so, kind of just setting them up to know, hey, we're going to go through these different steps. These are going to help you through preparation. We're going to get into action, and as you're continuing to be into action, we will transition you into this group, this money momentum group, where you will be held accountable, be able to do some of these things, and lessen your chances of relapsing back into your old behaviors, and really get you onto a solid maintenance footing. And so just even that language around it helps them to almost anticipate that benefit that they're going to get from a group like this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of it is the accountability side of
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
So um
And it keeps it less stale. I think that's
yeah.
oftentimes where we do relapse, is that we just the old money habits might be gone, and the new money habits are there, but then it becomes stale, and boring, I guess. And that the old money habits that were a little sexier start to, show themselves a little bit, and they're like, oh, but do you remember how much fun you were having over here? And it's just like, if we're in a group like that, like this, then it kind of lessens our chances of being lured by those old habits.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I make it very, I don't want to say easy to step into this group because I only offer it to specific type of people. Like they have to be the right type of person that fits in that group kind of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I make it very feasible for them. So anyone who decides to step into this, as far as like an investment structure, because obviously, like I'm not just going to put you into this group for free, kind of thing,
Right. I get it.
Uh, but the investment structure is very, very feasible in the sense of looking at like the initial investment that they initially made, depending on the type of program that they initially invested into. This money momentum group is either very comparable in the level of investment that they had originally made, or possibly even less, kind of
Mhm.
thing. Um, so it's like a premium kind of rate, you know, and that's okay because hey, if you're taking on and bringing on these clients into this momentum group, uh, and you're charging them a little bit less. Well, on the surface, it might be like, well, isn't that creating more work for you? Not necessarily, because you're working with all these people at the same time.
Mhm.
So, you could charge someone uh, $500 a month, let's just say, right? And then if they decide to go into this momentum group, maybe it goes down to $300 a month. Well, if you get 8 people into this group, what you were the amount of time that you were putting into 1 month for one
Mhm.
person
Mhm.
equals 500, but that same
Mhm.
amount of time that you're putting into this group, you're now making, you know,
2,400.
like 2,400. Right. So that's the scalability side of things. You're putting in the same amount of time, if not maybe even less, but you're really expanding the revenue kind of thing. All while you're still able to bring on new clients as well,
Mhm.
right? And that
Mhm.
creates space for you to be able to bring on those new clients. And that's another really big benefit to them, or to you as the coach as well.
Yeah.
So,
Very good. Well, thank you for starting there.
mhm.
I will now give you the permission to move on to the next pieces that you wanted to do. I just didn't want to gloss over all of the benefits at the end. I wanted to
Yeah,
make
for
sure that
sure.
we
And
made
I
that
think that
clear.
that's probably the most important part, is
Agreed.
to just kind of talk about the benefits because like it's important to know why you're doing it in the first place, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Um, so I can go into the structure side of things.
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to take very long, to be honest
Perfect.
with you. It's because it's a pretty simple structure.
Okay.
And you guys, if you're listening to this and you want to do something similar on your end, obviously you don't need to do a carbon copy of what I do. You can make it your own, and you can do what works best for your schedule or the way that you kind of run things, but I will at least share what I do so that you can use that for some inspiration. So the way that I handle things is I meet with people every other Saturday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. So it's an hour and a half long meeting. And I have this form that I have people fill out before the meeting. If there's something in particular that they feel like they need to have some extra support with, if they feel like they have, a specific question on, because there's a lot of times where people come to the meeting and nothing super crazy has happened. It's kind of like a maintenance thing, like you said. And in that scenario, it's as simple as just taking a look at their budgets, making sure that everything is still on track, everything is accounted for, and then you talk about how we're going to wrap up this month, and then we just move on to the next person, right? But if there is something or someone that has something come up to where they do need some extra support, I have them fill out what I call like a hot seat form, and I can actually share my screen for the YouTube
Audience.
watchers. So give me just 1 second. So this is what that screen or what that form kind of looks like. So they have access to this and they can fill it out before the meeting actually begins. And I'll get a notification that someone did put in a hot seat request. And there's a few sections. So you put in your name, and then the next part is on a scale of 1 to 6. I stole that from you, Maria. Being 6 being amazing. How do you feel about your money and progress right now? And then the next section is why did you give yourself that number that you just gave? What are you feeling good about? Or what do you feel needs improvement? And that gives me a good gauge as to where they're at and how they're feeling. What are you the most proud of this past week? What are your top 3 inspired actions for this week? Inspired actions are basically like, those things that you're going to do moving forward that are going to help move that needle for you. And then, of course, at the very bottom, it says, what is your hot seat question? Be as specific as possible. Include any links to resources that you might want to include as well. And then they press submit. And, being able to have that as we kind of go into the meeting, it gives me a chance to be prepared, to, be able to meet them where they're at and support them. But it also, and I tell them this too, it also gives them priority as well. So anyone who puts in this is going to be addressed first. Or, if I get 3 of them, then those are the first 3 people that I'm going to be focusing with, kind of thing. And that encourages everybody to do it on a more consistent basis, because there might be, and this doesn't happen very often, but there might be a time where we have a meeting to where you show up and I don't address you. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get any sort of value from it, because you can still get value from just learning from other people. But that is like a kind of like a wake up call to where it's like, well, if I want this support, then I need to be actively seeking it, kind of thing, and that's really the whole structure. Like I have it be a year-long program because I want to have that consistency of the group. I don't want to have people jumping in and jumping out randomly. I want there to be consistency for the sake of the community building side of things. But that's how I run it, and I've had people, jump into that momentum group and do it for 1 year. But I've also had people renew, not just 1 time, not just 2 times, but 2.5 times even. I said I've done it for the last 2 years. It's coming up on the 3rd. And I have had, someone who originally jumped into the very first group I had, they renewed for the 2nd year. And then they just said, hey, I want to renew for another 6 months. And I said, that's fine for you because you've already been in here for 2 years, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the whole structure.
Okay, so that is a really cool structure. I think what I love most about all of it is just the idea that people, they have to show up for themselves. There is that desire to be there, and I love that you have the hot seat thing. It gives them that chance to say, yes, I want to do this. No, I don't want to do this. What I find very interesting about the whole thing is it like you said, it's a year-long structure. I am curious to know, do people pay for the entire year typically, or do they go month to month? I'm guessing with you, it's that they pay for the whole year.
It's both.
Okay,
So the way
so
that I
whatever they're
structure it Yeah, the way that I structure it is I tell people like, hey, so that $300 a month thing, like that's a real thing, right? So
Yeah.
if they wanted to do the monthly, that's what it would be. So $300 a month for 12 months comes out to a total investment of $3,600.
Mm-hmm.
However, if they do decide to do the whole year upfront and in full, I do tell them that I will give you a whole quarter for free. I'll give you
Nice.
3 full months. So that would knock it down to a one-time investment of 2,700.
Nice.
Um,
Love it.
so yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Good. Good. Yeah. This is really, really great. My question for you as we wrap this up, Cody, is you mentioned, like if you have 8 people or whatever, I know a lot of our listeners are going, oh, I really want to try this. I want to be able to offer it to people. What what do you think is a good minimum number? Would you offer this for your next client? In other words, if it was just a one client group, would you offer it to them as part of the program? I'll tell you my answer, but I also want to hear yours.
I would say so, and I would just tell them that it's a rolling group for now. So,
Yep.
at first they would be the only one, but
Yep.
eventually there'd be more people that join in. And I would maybe even say like, hey, if you want to do this, something that I did is that for that first group, that first core of people. So I did
Mm-hmm.
like the first 5 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would get a founding members rate, which would be, instead of $300 a month, it was $200 a month kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then the math accordingly for the in
Yep.
full kind of thing.
Yep.
So, uh, I do think that like having it be a rolling thing as a founding member thing is fine. Um, Ideally, I think that having it be once it's up and running, you'd really want to make sure that it feels like a group. So I would say that you want to at least have 3 people in there, at
Okay.
least once it's up and running, to keep
Okay.
it going, kind of thing.
Yes, yes. I agree with that. My short answer, as I promised, would be yes, do it for that one client. And the reason for that is because if it truly is more about the client getting that continued accountability than it is about us scaling our business, then I think it does set a good precedent to just go ahead and offer it to that first and second and third client, even before you've got the full 3 in that group. And for that reason, I love your statement about it being a rolling group and just letting them know this is something that I'm starting or this is something that I do. You could even word it if they don't know how many clients you have. So you could even word it in such a way that says, this is something that I do for all of my clients at certain stages. Right now, you guys will be the only ones at that stage. So you'd be the only ones in this program, but you will see people coming in and out. And you could actually word it that way if you like, so that there's no
Mhm.
expectation of huge groups, and then that gives you as the coach the incentive, if you will, to bring more people in so that it really does become a scaled amount, not just you working the same number of hours for less money. Because if you're going down on cost and you only got one person, then you are actually you're descaling, which is
Mhm.
not really the right word, but you're going in the wrong direction that way.
Yep.
But I just like to think that we would put the needs of our clients ahead of, excuse me, the idea of just scaling financially. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's my longer short answer right there.
Cool. One last thing I'll say before we wrap things up is the way that I actually launched this myself is, and I could have done it that way. I just didn't because I wasn't thinking about that, right?
Hmm.
But that is a great way to start this. But the way that I started it is I actually reached out to some past clients who
Right.
I hadn't worked with for, 6 months, a year, maybe even longer. And, just reach out to them, said, hey, how are things going? And, if they said something along the lines of like, things are going okay, or, we had this setback, whatever it might be, um, I would then just say like, well, do you have time for, a quick 30-minute call? I have an idea that I think might be kind of cool for you. And I think that you might get some value from. And that's how I got my first 5 people in. So,
That's amazing. So, if you're just starting out, you want to use the approach that I mentioned. If you've been doing this for a while and now you want to try this as a new offering for people, you definitely want to utilize what Cody just said
mhm,
because you've got this backlog of people who you've already worked with. Yes, absolutely. Go back into them because, as we mentioned at the top of this episode, it is easier to keep a client than it is to get a new client. And the same goes for re-engaging previous clients. And that's different than because they already know you, they like you, they trust you. You've already gotten results for them and with them. And so they're more likely to say, yes, I want to join that thing with you than somebody who's a complete stranger on the internet.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, again, thank you for the amazing conversation, Maria. And
Yes, you
thank
too.
you guys for listening to another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. We'll be back again next week with another episode. And until then, do some brainstorming. See if you can get this up and running. And let us know how it goes in the Facebook group. And we'll go from there. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.